So, ఈరోజు community ecology start చేస్తాం.
Okay, very good evening, my dear friends. Welcome today session. This is Dr. PADALA Tirupati, Assistant Professor, Department of Botany, Government Degree College for Women, Jagitya. Today's eminent personality and resource person, Dr. P. Manjula Madam Garu, Assistant Professor, Department of Botany, RBVR Women's College. Madam has huge experience in the plant sciences. Today, Madam is going to explain about community ecology. So yesterday, Madam has clearly explained about the levels of biodiversity and ecosystem. Today, Madam is going to explain about community ecology. Madam, please share your screen and start the session.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, good evening, students. So,
Madam,
sir, is it
possible? Please click on slide. It is
okay,
an enlarged position.
Okay, sir. Sir, now is it okay?
Yes, madam. Yes, please proceed.
Okay, so today's topic is community ecology. So community means it is a group of population. So community ecology, it is the study of organization and functioning of communities. So which are assemblage of interacting populations of the species living within a particular area or habitat. So generally here the level, we already discussed about levels of organization. In levels of organization, that is, it starts with species, group of species constitute the population, and group of different populations constitute the community. So here the community ecology, it is the interaction between different communities with its surroundings. In a particular area, it constitutes the community ecology. So community ecology, it represents the population of all species, that is species of living organisms and interacting in an area at a particular time. It constitutes the community ecology. So each community has its special limit. So sometimes the boundary between two communities, it may be very sharp or it may be gradual. So the transitional zone between the junction between the two communities, so which is called as the ecotone. So generally this is also important point to note down. So ecotone means, so it is a transitional zone or junction between the two diverse communities. So generally it comes in competitive exams, ecotone. So ecotone harbors, it is a community termed as ecotonal community with organisms of overlapping communities. So here two different communities are there. So in between the two communities, so some overlapping of zones, two zones will take place. So here diverse of both communities will come present in this area. So it is a overlapping communities and some of unique types. So ecotone, it is a important point here, that is a transitional zone or junction between the two or more diverse communities. So next one is the characteristics of the community. So each biotic community which exhibits a number of characteristics. For example, diversity, variation, density, dominance, and composition and stratification. So first one is the species diversity. So diversity means it is a biotic community has, so that is here in the biotic community. For example, in the biotic community, we discussed about the producers, consumers, decomposers. So here the variation in these species. So a biotic community has producers, consumers, and decomposers. So within these species diversity, so some populations influenced more than others in the community because of the share of the high percentage of energy. So next one is the growth and structure. So the community is usually described in terms of growth forms. So third one is the third character, that is the dominance. So in each community, one or few species dominate the either in number or in physical characteristics based on the more number of numbers or based on the size of the species, or both over the other species. So the dominant species, it is called as the ecological dominant. So in any ecosystem or in any ecosystem, so that based on the number, so we can based on the dominant species only we can calculate, for example, in grass ecosystem. So we based on the number of grasses. So here we consider the grass ecosystem. So it is an ecological dominance. So in each community, one or few species dominate either in number or in the physical characteristics or both over the other species. So it is the dominant species, it is called as a ecological dominant. And succession, so another one is another characteristic of the community, it is a succession. So succession, it is a very important in development of the community. So community develops as a result of the directional changes in it within the time. So that is the very that is a succession. So again we will discuss this succession in details. So that is the same area which is occupied by different species, different communities. So at last final climax community is formed. So it is called as a succession. So it takes many years to form a climax community. So the next one is the trophic levels. So there are three broad trophic. Already we discussed about these trophic levels. In that is there are three broad trophic levels in a community, which are that is producers, consumers, and decomposers. And the food produced by the green plants, it is consumed directly or indirectly by all kinds of animals. So these are known as the consumers. And here the trophic levels, that is the in each one. So it is we named as a trophic level, that is autotrophs constitute the one trophic level, heterotrophs or herbivores constitute one trophic level, and secondary consumers constitute the another trophic level. Like this, here many different types of trophic levels are present, but first one is the autotrophs or producers. So the dead bodies and excreta of both producers and consumers are decomposed by the microbes into simple substances. So these are called as the decomposers of the community. So in any community, so three different levels of trophic. So here the different trophic levels are seen. So each, that is the transfer of energy from one organism to another, which takes place in a linear manner. So here each one, it is called as a trophic level. So within all biological communities, so energy at each trophic level is lost in the form of heat. That is as much as 80 to 90% of the energy is lost in the form of heat, as organisms expend energy for metabolic processes such as the that is for the digestion or for the respiration. So other metabolic activities. So the higher the organism is on the trophic pyramid, the less the energy is available to it. Already we discussed about these ecological pyramids also. In this, so the top one is get less amount of energy when compared to the base trophic level. So here available energy to it, and herbivores and detrivores. So the primary consumers have less available energy than the plants, and the carnivores that feed on the herbivores and the detrivores, that is secondary consumers, and those that eat other carnivores, that is tertiary consumers, have the least amount of available energy. So next one is the trophic pyramid and flow of energy, that is autotrophs and heterotrophs. So all biological communities have the basic structure of interaction that forms a trophic pyramid. That is a diagrammatic representation of these trophic levels, which constitute the pyramid. So it is made up of trophic levels, and food energy is passed from one level to the next along with the food chain. So the base of the pyramid is composed of species. That one, first one is the pyramid of number, second one is the pyramid of biomass, and third one is the pyramid of energy. So in any pyramid, so the base is occupied by the autotrophs. It is followed in the primary producers of the ecosystem, and they get energy from the sun by the process of photosynthesis. They synthesize the energy to make organic substances from inorganic ones. So all other organisms in the ecosystem are consumers, are called as the heterotrophs, and which either directly or indirectly dependent on the producers for food energy. Next one is the pyramid of structure. So the organisms that make up the base level of the pyramid vary from the community to community. So that may be in terrestrial communities, that is multicellular plants generally form the base of the pyramid. So here the autotrophs. So based on the ecosystem, that is in, for example, in terrestrial or in terrestrial, for example, in the forest ecosystem, the base that is producers are trees, whereas in the grassland ecosystem, the producers are grasses. So it varies from community to community. So for example, in terrestrial community, multicellular plants generally form the base of the pyramid, whereas in freshwater lakes, the combination of multicellular plants and single-celled algae constitute the first trophic level. And the trophic structure of the ocean is built on the phytoplanktons, whereas in the oceans, the base, that is autotrophs, are phytoplanktons. So the transfer of energy through an ecosystem at each trophic level, only a small proportion of energy is transferred to the next level. So we already discussed about this energy flow in an ecosystem, from the producers to primary consumers, from the primary consumer to secondary consumers. Here the transfer of energy will take place. While transferring, only 10% of amount of energy is received by primary consumers. Also only 10% of energy is received from primary consumers to secondary consumers. So while transferring the energy from one trophic level to another trophic level, so some of the amount of energy is lost in the form of heat. So next one is another function, that is the food chains and food web. So we already discussed about these food chains also, because all species are specialized in their diet. So each trophic pyramid is made up of the series of interconnecting feeding relationships. It is called as the food chains. So the species can be grouped according to where in the community they obtain their food, and groups can be linked together by the food chain. So which the linkage of these different types of food chains which constitute the food web. So each one, it is called as a trophic level. So food chains combine into highly complex food webs, and even a simplified food web can show a complicated network of the trophic relationships. So next one is the size. So the community may be small or consisting of a few species population in a small space, or a large comprising several species of population in large area. And larger ones extend over the area of several thousand square kilometers also. For example, large sized community, it is a forest and a desert. So they occupy the large area. Whereas, so very small sized communities are the groups of the microbes in such microbe habitats as a leaf surface. So on the leaf surface or any surface, many microorganisms are present. So it constitutes the small sized community. So for example, on the fallen log also, so many small insects and larvae also present on this fallen log, litter and soil, etc. So in a small sized population, if the community which is occupied in a small area, so it is called as a small sized community. And if it occupies, the examples for large sized communities are forest ecosystem, forest community, and desert. Whereas here for the examples for small sized communities are leaf surface, or fallen log, litter, soil, etc. So next one is the structure of the community. The community structures and composition and other characters can be readily described by visual observation without actual measurements here. So communities usually categorized by the ecologist in various ways, primarily based on the habitat features. So based on the where they are growing, so based on the availability of water or high exposure to light or other habitat are taken into consideration here. So for example, depending on the amount of water availability, here the plant communities may be classified into hydrophytes, xerophytes, and mesophytes. So hydrophytes means the plants which grow in the abundance of water, in the presence of water, or the surroundings, water bodies. And mesophytes, they require moderately moist soil. So the plants which growing in the moderately moist soil. So it requires both dry conditions and also some amount of water is required. Whereas the xerophytes, they can grow in dry or arid habitats. So again, here the communities are again classified into two types, that is autotrophic communities and heterotrophic communities. So autotrophic communities means so which require only the energy from the sun to derive the process of photosynthesis. So it called as the autotrophic communities. So examples are forest and grassland. So examples for autotrophic communities are forest and grasslands. Next one is the heterotrophic communities. So such the organisms that mainly grow and they get energy from the fallen log or depend on the autotrophic communities for their energy source. So here the heterotrophic, they get energy from the fallen logs, that is dead organic matter, etc. So all communities have certain characteristics that define their biological and physical structures, but these characters are vary in both based on the space and also on the time. So another one is a guild. It is a group of species within a community and that interact more strongly among themselves than with the others and utilizing habitat or food resources in a similar manner. So guild. So here another term is there, that is guild. Guild means, so it is a group of species within a community. They interact in themselves only. They cannot interact with other species. So among themselves only and then with the others and utilizing the habitat or food resources in the same space and utilizes their space and energy resources in a same manner. So it is called as a guild. So classification of most of the community is in a larger part based on the structure of the plant community or association. So the plants represents the most stable living components of the community. So because they lack mobility, so because they cannot move, so they must go up with the prevailing environmental conditions and also therefore they are excellent indicators. So characterization of the community is based on both the biological structure and also the physical structures. So here, this is also important. So the form and structure of the terrestrial communities are largely defined by the vegetation, including the growth forms or vertical, horizontal and biological structure. So here Raunkier's life forms. So Raunkier, he is an ecologist. So he classified the plant life in relation to the height of the perinating tissue. So perinating tissue means, so it is an embryonic or meristematic tissue that remain inactive during unfavorable conditions or over winter or the prolonged dry periods. So perinating, so they can survive in unfavorable conditions, and when the conditions are favorable, they can grow. So here, based on the perinating tissues, the height of the perinating tissues, here Raunkier, he classified the different plants into 6 life forms. So perinating tissue includes, so here the perinating tissue, it may be buds, bulbs, tubers, roots, and other seeds. So based on the height of the perinating tissues are taken into consideration. So he classified 6 life forms. So first one is the phanerophytes. So here phanerophytes, cryptophytes, therophytes, chemophytes, hemicryptophytes and epiphytes. So first one is the phanerophytes. So phanerophytes means trees and
okay, my dear friends and my dear students, Madam has explained excellently. This Raunkier classification is one of the most important area. Without this question, without this topic, there is no ecology and biodiversity. So my dear friends, listen carefully. Raunkier's classification among the 7 categories, most important, listen carefully. Madam, please continue.
Okay, sir. So first one is the phanerophytes. So here the phanerophytes means the trees and shrubs greater than the 25 centimeters in height and that have their leaf producing buds which elevated above the ground, exposed above the ground on the stem. So these are called as the phanerophytes. Next one is the cryptophytes. So cryptophytes means they are also known as the geophytes. So grass, that is grasses which have above ground tissue and that die back in the winter. So during winter, so they are in the form of perinating birds or during prolonged dry periods and survive unfavorable periods as a birds buried in the ground and a bulb or a rhizome. So cryptophytes. These are also known as the geophytes because they are present inside the soil, buried inside the soil. So next one is the therophytes. So therophytes means these are the animals that survive unfavorable periods as the seeds and complete their life cycle from seed to seed in one season. Next one is the chemophytes. So perennial shoots and buds are on the surface of the ground to about 25 centimeters above the surface. Next one is the hemicryptophytes. Hemicryptophytes are, these are the perennial shoots or buds are closer to the surface of the ground and covered with the litter. Next one is the epiphytes. So epiphytes, the plants that grow on other plants with their roots up in the air. So epiphytes means the plants which growing on the other plants, they are called as the epiphytes. So again, I will explain this with examples in later slides. So these are the life forms. So based on the height of the perinating buds. So first one is the phanerophytes, chemophytes. Next one is the hemicryptophytes, geophytes, therophytes, and epiphytes. So epiphytes means they grow on other plants. So next one is the next character, that is the spatial, that is the way of ultimate distribution of the species relative to each other. So in a particular habitat shared by several species, and each of the species is usually confined to its own micro habitat or spatial, their area only. So here the way, based on the distribution of the species related to their area here, spatial. So for example, in the tropical forest, trees are stratified into several different levels. So each level is the habitat of the distinct collection of the species. So based on here height also. So here the here these are the different strata. So here based on their heights. So here this first one, so they are, so the small sized plants, so they constitute the ground layer. So they form one layer. Strata means stratification means layers. Like, so here the shrub layer. Next one is the understory layer, canopy, which totally covers total area. And next one is the emergent layer. So different layers. Stratification means the layers of the, so based on the height of the plant, so they form a stratification layers above the ground. So here different based on the stratification, that is ground layer plants. So the height of these plants is the here confined to this much only. So ground layer. So next one is a shrub layer, understory layer, canopy layer, and with the plants which emerge, that is they come out of this canopy layer, so they are called as the emergent layer. So next one is the temporal. So it is the timing of the appearance and activity of the species. So they are called as the temporal species. So they are the plants, they are grow in some particular season only. So they are called as the temporal species. For example, in many desert plants and animals are dormant most of the year, and they emerge or germinate in response to seasonal rains. So other plants stick around the year around and having evolved adaptation to resist drought. So here this temporal species means they germinate or they grow, or they grow during only particular season only. So in other seasons they are dormant. So they will be perinated. That is, they can survive in that unfavorable conditions. In the favorable conditions only, they will germinate and the growth of the plants will be seen. And in other seasons, they will be in a perinating condition. So next one is the scale. So it is the size of the community, that is provided that the area or habitat is well defined, and a community can be here a system of almost any size from the drop of water. So here based on the size here. So here the community may be from the drop of water to a rotting log, to a forest, to the surface of the Pacific Ocean. So here based on the size of the community, that is based on the area which is occupied by that particular community. So it may be a drop of water. In the drop of water also many microorganisms are there. They can grow. Many bacteria which are present, small size bacteria which may grow in a drop of water also. In a rotting log also, many microbes are present. And in a forest, so here from the small area to any area, here the scale means the size of the community. So here we already discussed the size of the community. So small size example for small size community is here the drop of water. It may be a rotting log, or it may be a mouth also. In the mouth also many microbes are present. In the teeth, gum of the teeth. So anyone, so in a small drop, so it is a small sized. Whereas a large sized examples are forest or other deserts or other here the Pacific Ocean. So based on the area which is occupied by the community. So next one is the patterns of community. So here the next one is, so the structure of the community is constantly changing. So next topic, that is ecological succession. So generally the structure of the community is constantly changing. So all communities, so for example here ecological succession means it is a, so one particular area, when we take in a particular area, so we the communities are changing constantly, and at last here the final community is forming. So the structure of the community is constantly changing, and all communities are subjected to periodic disturbances ranging from events that have only localized effects, such as the loss of tree that creates a gap in the canopy of the forest. So to those have catastrophic, so other organisms, other plants will come and occupy that area. So which include wildfires and that sweep across the vast landscapes are shown. So here the same one particular, if we consider a particular area which is occupied by the different communities constantly, and at last find due to changes in the environment or also due to changes in the soil. So same area which is at last here the final community is formed, and it may persist for few years. So in course of every long period of time at many places, the communities have reached a peak stage and attain a dynamic balance with the environmental changes. So the process of changing in a communities and their environment at one place in the course of time, it is called as a ecological succession. So ecological succession, it is nothing but this. So that is a constant changing of a particular area and which is occupied by the different communities. And at last final community is formed without any environmental disturbances. So the process of changing in communities and their environment at one place in the course of time, it is called as the ecological community. So succession, that is occurs in a predictable stages. So at each stage, different species of plants and animals may be present. So at the same place, which is occupied by different communities at particular interval. Again, so we will discuss this also in detail. So as succession progresses, new organisms move in and other may die or move out. So the first species to take hold in an area, it is called as a pioneer species. So types of succession. So there are two types of successions have been distinguished, that is primary succession and secondary succession. So primary succession means which occurs in essentially a lifeless area, where a bare area, which occurs in a bare area in which the soil is incapable of sustaining life. So on bare area, then there is no living organisms are present in that area. And result of such factors as due to lava flows or other environmental effects. So here one area is present. So here there is no living organisms can exist in that area. So it is called as a bare area. So on this bare area, so it is called as the primary succession. It is a succession which starts on the bare area, which is where there is no capability of living and sustainability of life on that area. It is called as the And this here, if the succession which starts on this bare area, it is called as the primary succession. So here in primary succession, that is bare rock is there. So here, due to migration of some spores or sporidia, so here these lichens will fall on this bare area. So generally lichens, they grow on rocks. So the rocks, so the spores, so here the germination of these spores will takes place, and in this way. So here first here bare area is there. So on this here lichens, the growth of the lichens will start, and after some time this area which is occupied by small annual plants. So due to some changes which takes place by these lichens, so lichens secrete some carbonic acid, some the chemicals. So these carbonic acid which convert this rock into the large sized rocks into small sized rocks. So here due to which, so this area now it is capable of growing on the small annual plants can now grow on this area. Like that, again this is occupied by other perennial herbs. Same area. So first here the bare rock is there. So here same area which is occupied by different communities. So it takes in a serial manner. So it is called as the succession. So here the primary succession means, so it starts in the bare area where there is no life sustainability. It is called as the primary succession. At last here the final climax community is formed. So second one is the secondary succession. So secondary succession means, so secondary succession which occurs in an area, so where a community, that is already here the community is present, but due to which is removed due to fire or as storms, so which create the patches of the habitat, so that are colonized by early successional species. So here the already here the final community is formed, but due to some ecological environmental disturbances, so the area is again there is no living organisms are there, but here the small seeds or other any sporulating birds may be present inside the soil. So depending on the extent of the disturbance, some species may survive and other species may be recolonized from the nearby habitats. So here if the succession which starts on the this area, so it is called as the secondary succession. In secondary succession, already the area which is occupied by the community, but due to environmental disturbances like fires or other storms or other things, so the area now becomes there is no living organisms, but there due to these environmental disturbances, so some species may survive due as a perinating birds or like that, and other species may be recolonized. So after some time, so from this again the growth germination of these plants may takes place. So it is called as the secondary succession. For example, so many plant species in the fire prone environments have seeds that remain dormant within the soil until the heat of the fire stimulates them to germinate. So after which, so here the again germination of the seeds will take place, and again here the succession will starts. So the difference between primary succession and secondary. So here primary succession which starts on a bare area. So where is there is that is incapable here the area with the soil which is incapable of sustaining life. So here the growth of the organisms will not take place. That type of succession it is called as a primary succession. Whereas the secondary succession means already here the communities are growing, but due to some ecological environmental disturbances like fires or storms or other factors or floods, so the area becomes now there is no organisms, but after sometimes again the germination of the seeds and growth of the plants will takes place. So this is the difference between primary and secondary succession. So again we will discuss this in detail. So here in secondary succession, so here the plants are there, so due to fire attacks, so here the plant the area becomes bare. Again here the seeds which are present inside this soil again germinate to produce. So here the pioneer species are annual plants. So again it is followed by the grasses and perennials and intermediate species, and at last final community will be forming. So it takes to form a climax community. So generally ecological succession, it is a slow process and it takes many years. So here from this bare areas to form the final climax community, it takes 150 plus years. So here the first one is here, that due to fires, this community is, there is no living organism. So after sometimes the growth of these plants, the seeds which are present inside the, or some perinating buds which are present inside the soil will germinate. So it takes 1 to 2 years to germinate. Here annual plants will be dominated. So here the growth of these annual plants will take place, and after some time the death and decay of these and these plants, so some of the soil, the humus will humus is added to this soil. So due to which, so this soil is now it is capable of growing for the grasses and perennials. So again, after some years, here again this is followed by the, so same area which is occupied by now grasses, shrubs and pines and oak trees. So like that, so same area which is occupied by the different communities. So here the first it is occupied by the annual plants, and next it is followed by the grasses and perennial plants. Next one is here the shrubs and pines. Same area is, so here the, during succession, ecological succession, here the soil also becomes fertile, and it is now and now it is capable of growing. Here this final stage, at the final stage, this is suitable for the growth of the oak trees or the large size of trees, and they can be sustained for the they can sustain for more years. So it is called as the climax community. So ecosystem structure during the early, so here the plant size is small and species diversity is low, and tropical structure is mostly producers and few decomposers, and so few and mostly generalized here ecological links, and community organization is low at the during the early succession stage. So in next class we will discuss about this process of ecological succession. So in today's topic we discussed about the characteristics of the community. So again we will discuss this Raunkiers also with examples. So in next class again we will discuss this Raunkiers with examples. So these are the so in today's topic we discussed about this community structure of the community ecology. So here ecotone, it is important. Ecotone means it is a transitional zone or junction between the two or more diverse communities. It is called as a ecotone. So this is the important point to note down. So species diversity. So dominant, so if the community which is dominated by number of species are the based on the physical characters, it is called as the ecological dominance. Succession, so it is important, succession also. So here again we discuss about two types of ecological successions, that is